ground stands and applauds the 19-year-old. Have you seen a better goal than that anywhere? I very much doubt it.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
The Night Train is brought to you by St Andrew's Hotel, 128 Nicholson Street, Fitzroy. Beautifully crafted, cosy and intimate spaces for your drinking and dining experiences.
I think the Knights, their time has arrived. I think last week that 10-man performance in the preliminary final was absolutely exceptional, so I'm going for the Knights.
When you talk of Knights, it's a real fighting team.
Buskak into the back of the net. Melbourne Knights take the lead, 1-0. Melbourne Knights will win the Doherty Cup.
Croatia looking for a finals berth. That's it! The Croatia fans salute the goal that could be so vital.
It has been a long off-season, Knights fans, but the Night Train is back. All new hosts, the same very, very intense passion. We look forward to having all your contributions on the show tonight for Season 2 of the Night Train. 9944 9999 is our talkback line. 03 in front of that if you're outside of Victoria. 0428 933 45 is our SMS. This show is FNR's highest rating program. We love the passion. Please get involved in the Facebook Live comments. I'm Josh Parrish, and we've got 3 new hosts with us in the studio this evening. Gentlemen, would you like to go around and introduce yourselves?
Oh, well, hi everyone. I'm Anthony Zovak, and I'll be the host this year of the Night Train.
Jure Dragovic in off the bench, filling in. We're going to have a rotating cast during the year, so looking very much forward to tonight's show and our special guest, Mark Ivkovic.
Yep, I'm the Football Operations Manager at the Melbourne Knights, so happy to be here, guys.
Yeah, guys, so just looking forward to the season coming ahead. We're going to be coming in tonight with pre-season recap, new coach, the performance team, list of player roster changes, quick review of the Friendship Cup, the Crow Cup, round 1, and of course a preview coming in as of round 2, Friday night's first home game of the season. Now, just a quick junior review from the weekend. Round 2 of the NPL Junior Boys. Under 13s won 2-0. Under 14s drew 1-1. Under 15s bye. And the under 16s with an emphatic 9-0 victory. It was great to see under 13s chalk up their first win of the season. The under 14s unlucky not to win with a penalty awarded against them in the dying minutes of the game. And obviously the 16s had an emphatic victory to kick things off. Our Mini Roos and junior girls are back in full swing with pre-season commencing 2 weeks ago. Great to see many new and returning faces back at Dobson Reserve. We are super excited about our new Mini Roos program, which is being led by Željko Kuzman, our new Mini Roos technical director. We are delighted that we'll be fielding 3 junior girls teams in 2020, new under 9s, under 11s and under 13s. Our junior girls program is taking great leaps forward. We do have a couple of positions still available in our under 9s boys, born 2011, and a spot is remaining in our under 12s girls, 2008 born, and we are on the lookout for under 13s junior girls coach. Please send any inquiries through to juniors@melbourneknights.com.au.
And the juniors, the junior president, Susie Corlich, I think is 3rd or 4th year, doing a fantastic job there. The juniors, it's a long season in the NPL. They've started early. It's 33 games this year. So 11 to qualify, to get some sort of seedings in, and then it almost yesteryear turns into a bit of a Super League at the end of the year. So, wishing all the junior teams at the Melbourne Knights every success in season 2020.
Of course. And we also have a review here for the under 20s and the under 18s against Port Melbourne on Saturday, playing a day after the seniors. The under 18s competition will prove to be much tougher than previous years, with them playing the same teams as the seniors and the under 20s both play. In a topsy-turvy game that had 3 lead changes, the under 18s were unfortunate on the losing end of a 3-2 scoreline. The game was very open encounter with chances of plenty for both sides. The goal scorer was Emin Alatovic with a brace. The trend continued in the 20s. A game of tricky conditions resulting in an exciting game. Port fielded numerous senior squad players, and it was evident in the first half that they had much of the play. Deservedly went up 1-0 at the break. A second half send-off for Port swayed the momentum, with Shaw Knights coming from behind to snatch a 2-1 victory through a brace of penalties with the ever-reliable Luka Jurkovic. A very satisfactory victory, to say the least. And that's from our under-18s coach, Tomislav Gavran.
So, boys, 2020 season is upon us after a up and down season last year. Change of coach, very good FFA Cup run, started off very well, and then had some challenges from a player perspective and a coaching perspective second half of the year. The AGM, the members had their voice. Sponsors were called for, and investment was made into the club. The committee that pretty much continued on took heed of the advice, and we've invested probably more so than in the last couple of years at the very least in the playing group, new coach, new pitch, new and a lot of new players. So Mark, you've been very heavily involved for the last 3 years now.
Yep,
This is the third year. So tell us a little bit about, well, we all know that Shuey Munro is back in the coaching game, about him, his team, and the squad that you guys collectively put together.
Yep. So it was probably early November that we spoke to Stuart, and we gave him a call after a thorough process of looking for the next head coach for the Melbourne Knights. We exhausted all avenues to get the right person for the job. When we spoke to Stuart initially, when he took the phone call, his first words were, "Do you know where I live?" And we said, "No, we've got no idea." He said, "I live in Mount Eliza." I said, "Okay, fair enough." And as we kept speaking to him on the phone, by the end of the conversation, he said, "Look, give me a week to think about it. It's a fair bit of travel, and I just need some time to work out if it's right for me." Sure enough, a week later he called, and we sat down with him for a couple of hours, and everything he was saying fitted with what we wanted to achieve. So we gave him the job and hit the ground running straight away with Stewie, and had numerous meetings with him and what kind of squad he wanted, and he'd done a lot of homework and watched pretty much every game that we played last year. And he wanted to add a bit of experience to the squad, which was probably the correct thing to do because the average age of the squad last year was 22 years old. And he felt that's probably where the second half of the season didn't fall apart, because we still made the Doherty Cup final, and if we didn't have the 3-point deduction, probably would have had a strong chance of making the finals. But in those games against Kingston and Dandenong Thunder and games like that, no one had that steel to take the game. So obviously we looked to recruit a bit more experience into the squad. So we shifted 8 players out of the team and brought in 11. He wanted a 22-man squad, which we haven't had for a fair few years. He wanted 2 spots in every position. And his number one request was his backroom staff, and he wouldn't budge on that. He was very, very big on who he was going to bring in. So obviously we've got the high-performance team that came in led by Keegan Ziada, and numerous people on his team, and they've been fantastic as well, and then brought in 11 new players. So I feel as though this is probably, in the 3 years that I've been doing the job, the best squad that we've had in the 3 years.
And the high performance team, we can touch on a little bit how we went pre-season, what have you, but it was very heartening, disappointing for the boys involved, but very heartening from a supporter perspective. I saw about 6 guys fully fit in tracksuits who didn't even make the squad on Friday night.
I think that was a first for a couple of them. We've got real competition for places, and you saw the guys that missed out. Calvin Whitney and Ivan Gregic unfortunately didn't make the squad, and they were regulars last year, and unfortunately they didn't make the squad in round 1, but doesn't mean they won't be considered for round 2, because it all starts again this week. And then you had James McGarry, who's still a couple of weeks away to come back in, and James was the only injury that we had going into round one, and that was a pre-existing injury. So there's nothing to do with the high performance team. So for them to have 21 out of 22 players available for round one, and you can see across the board in the games over the weekend, so many teams had so many of their key players missing through injury. I think they've already paid themselves off for the way they prepared the team.
I think that really speaks to the strength of our squad going into this season, where you've got, especially coming in, there's no major pre-existing injuries across the squad. Everyone looks fit, everyone looks firing, and everyone looks ready and raring to go.
Yep, definitely. Look, Keegan, who heads the high-performance team, he's played in the NPL. He played for Dandenong City, he played for Dandenong Thunder. His day job is he works for the Melbourne women's AFL team. So he gets the NPL system. You get a lot of strength and conditioning guys that come in that, try and do all this fancy stuff. But Keegan gets what the NPL is about. So from day one, he had a plan on how we're going to get these guys fit. And not fit only just for last week's game, how we can peak throughout the year to be fit consistently, because it's easy to get fit and do long Brimbank Park runs and stuff like that, and you're ready to go for round one. But you've got to keep that sustained fitness going throughout the year so that you don't get injuries through the year and that you're constantly fit.
Yeah, well, that's the last thing we want to see, especially off the back of last season, how many injuries and players we had missing from the squad, especially towards the second half of the season. That's something I think I can speak for all Knights fans. We really don't want looking into, especially with the strong squad we have going into this season.
Definitely, and I suppose that's where Stuart's experience comes into play, where, he was adamant that this high-performance team needed to come in because he's worked with them in the past, and now we can see as a club why he wanted that so much.
For the benefit of those supporters who may not be aware of the ins, Stuart, with his network of connections and what have you, we've ended up getting players from different states and the whole lot. So if you just want to quickly go through the big ins this year and a bit of their pedigree.
Yep. They came from all over the place, which is a logistical nightmare sometimes for myself, trying to locate these players and look after them and stuff like that, because you can't just bring them to the club and let them fend for themselves. So, like we said, 11 new players in. So Enes Sivic came across, formerly at Dandenong City. He's a right back. Stuart had worked with him when he was at Dandenong City himself. Dennis Yildiz, left back he was playing at Hume a few years ago and then went over to Turkey for 3 years.
Super quick.
Very quick. Young
Friday night's anything to judge
Dennis. By. His nickname is Disco Dennis, so he's quite quick on the dance floor as well.
Let's hope he can stay that quick on the wings this year.
But yeah, he was playing at quite a good level in Turkey. He went over when he was, I think, 17, and he was playing for Göztepe, which is a Super League club over there. And then he played in the second division last season, so he just wanted to come back home. Obviously, it's a little bit different over there, and he was a bit homesick, so he came in late to the squad. And he's been a great addition for us, because last year we didn't have a left back. Nick Lovan was playing there out of position, and Dennis is a natural left footer, and he's a proper left back. One of our first signings was Nick Petrillo, a centre back from Rockdale Suns, and I think he's fitted in really well. He had a great game on the weekend. Strong centre back, wins balls in the air, reads the play well. Obviously, one of the big ins, and we'd been working on him for a couple of years, was Matthew Breeze from Green Gully. Didn't get off to the best start on his nice debut, but that's football, and he'll work his way back into the squad, and we'll miss him. But massive addition for us. He's been a breath of fresh air. His demands are so high. He guides the youngsters in training. Really wants to help these guys get to where we want to get to. He's a winner, and we needed that winning mentality into our club.
Yeah, well, the half an hour he was on the park on Friday night, he did look quite good.
Yeah, no, Breeze is unbelievable. He's got that X factor that a lot of players in the league don't have.
Is he still commuting from Bendigo?
He is, actually, and that's, along with Stuart travelling from Mount Eliza, Nikola Jukovic travels from Geelong, and Breezy travels from Bendigo, which is unbelievable. He does not miss a session. He runs his own cafe in Bendigo, so it's a massive commitment. So he's not wasting his time. He doesn't want to come and lose. So that's why his standards are so high, because if he's dedicating that time to come down, he wants it to be world class. So, yeah, my hat goes off to Breezy for coming down all that way. James McGarry comes back to the club, which is a massive addition as well. That's massive experience. James had a pre-existing injury that we knew about when we signed him. And, we were happy to take that risk with him because of the backroom staff that we had. We know that they would get him fit. And he's been unbelievable in his rehab. Like, he was at the game on Friday. He'd come 2 hours before kickoff to do some fitness work with the fitness team so that he didn't miss a session, because he knows every session counts for him to get back and ready for round 5, which is unheard of. Like, I've never seen that. For him to come down and do a session at Port Melbourne, he's desperate to get back in, and he's turned the corner in his rehab. He should start training fully with the squad next week, so hopefully he's a couple of weeks away from being able to play. Marcus Duncan, the centre-back that we signed from Hamilton Olympic in Newcastle, he came in pretty much on deadline day. We were on the hunt for another centre-back all pre-season, and he just popped up on the Friday before the window closed, and gave him a call and said, if you're willing to come down straight away, we've got a game against Sydney United, you can play in that, and we'll see how you go. When we threw him in the deep end, and he did quite well, and he was happy to relocate, and we signed him over that weekend. And he played 45 minutes on the weekend and looked quite good as well. Connor Macdonald, who is an Irish, one of our visa players. He comes from New Zealand, where he was playing last year. He won the championship in the Winter League over there. He's a box-to-box midfielder, unbelievable player. I think he's going to take the league by storm. Unfortunately, he only got 45 minutes on the weekend because Stuart wanted to make a tactical change. But, yeah, Connor's going to be unbelievable. And John Bichetto came. He was probably our first signing. Stuart had worked with him in the past. He was in Germany for the last few years, and he's a pretty quick winger. So he did quite well on the weekend as well. And then the promotions from our youth team. So young Felipe Sanchez got rewarded for his stellar year last year, and he played a couple of senior games last season too. Jack Marth, who returns, he was at Melbourne Victory for the last couple of years, but he's our junior, and he's looking quite good. He's had a great pre-season, and I think he'll play a fair few senior games. And Dante Carlusic, who was the captain last year for the under-20s. So it's a lot of ins. I'm out of breath. But, yeah, we needed to add that depth, because you could see the bench on the weekend. You had Juzi, Glavan, Caleb Mikulic. These guys were starting games regularly last season. And, to have those guys coming off the bench shows what depth you've got, this season. Yeah,
definitely shows the quality of the squad that we've been able to put together coming into season 2020.
Yep, definitely.
Well, we've got comments flying through on the Facebook Live as usual. A lot of amateur comedians coming through. Pashko says, I've seen better heads on flat beers. Thank you very much. Dennis Knezovic asks where Tony Kolchak is, as is customary, if anyone's been following along in the Facebook Lives last season. Keep the interaction coming. We love it. Tell us a little bit about those under-20s players, because I saw Felipe's debut when I was commentating the game against Bentley Greens. Yep. He's a tidy little footballer.
Yeah, Felipe, I've got a special little place for him, but he's unbelievable. He's got so much potential, that kid. He's just turned 17 years old, so he's made his debut last year when he was 16. He's quite small and looks a lot younger than his age. He looks like he's about 12 or 13, but his footwork and sense of gravity is unbelievable. And his will to win and fight in every training session. He works hard. He's got a big future ahead of him. Obviously you've got to slowly bleed him into the senior setup. He's going to develop a lot more this year training with the senior team. But yeah, he's got a big future ahead of him. And me personally, my personal opinion, I'd be shocked if he didn't make it as a professional footballer.
The other ins, a lot of them coming from overseas. How does the scouting work on your behalf? I know NPL signings are often a web of contacts, and obviously the new coach has got a number of players he's worked with in the past he's brought in, and it's very common. But Knights, more than any other club in the league, seem to have signed lots of players. A lot of Australians, of course, because of the visa restrictions, but lots of players playing overseas. Yep. How do you actually get in contact with these guys? How do you find them? Obviously, you've had players on your radar from previous seasons. How does it all work?
Yeah, so it's a lengthy process. Like I said, Breezy, that was 2 years in the making. Constant nagging of him to come across. And sometimes it's got to be the right time for the player to come.
Stalking. Some people call it stalking.
You've got to be persistent. That's what it is. You can't give up. When a player says no initially, you've got to. If you really identify them as a player that you want, you've got to keep trying until you get him. Same as James McGarry. That was the first signing that we identified when I took the job 3 years ago, and now he's finally come across. The interstaters and the overseas players. You just do. Names get thrown at you, or you do a bit of research. It's not that hard. There's a lot of information out there now. And thankfully, we've got pretty good contacts in every state. So when you identify a player and look at their stats and watch a few videos of them now because of the streaming, then you go to your contacts that you have interstate and see what they think, that if they're capable of playing in NPL Victoria. And if that matches up to what your thoughts are, then you give them a call or Facebook Messenger. That's how you usually get them first if you can't get their number. And, make contact with them and have a discussion. So, yeah, it's quite extensive. And then Stuart obviously brought in some of his players that he's worked with before through his contacts. So, yeah, it's fun.
Do many of these guys have agents?
Very rarely. Very rarely. A couple do, but that's when it gets a little bit difficult because agents at NPL level, without being harsh, they want to be agents. Like if you're an NPL player, you don't need an agent. You know, it's pretty straightforward to negotiate with players directly. So, yeah.
And the Knights have demonstrated that through the club's own contacts and what have you, and the work that you do as well. When these guys do come across, they see a potential platform to actually get to the next level. I mean, just in recent news, this is Jan's second year, Brycey from Newcastle fitted in fantastically well. Unfortunately, had to go home for family reasons. Elvis Kamsoba, before that, we got him across from Adelaide, from Adelaide, Croatia, essentially. So these other players in NPL levels in other states, I'm sure they look at players that come to the Knights, how well they're looked after, and the whole lot. So, it's a credit to us as a club community and the work that Mark does to for these guys to come across, get somewhere to live, get somewhere to work, and hopefully get to a level where they're comfortable and play the best football that they can.
I think that comes back again to just the size of a club that Melbourne Knights represents. There's a big historical component to what we've done, how long we've been around, what we've been doing, and the quality of players that have come through the doors at Summer Street. When you look back across the last 20 to 30 years, some of the players we've produced, we've got a very good track record of promoting young players, giving young players a go. And, like the list you just put through, how many have moved on to bigger and better things using Knights as a sort of platform to launch from?
And definitely all the new guys that come in, especially, again, like the new guys on Friday night, they saw the support that was out there. And I think that's when they realised, I'm actually playing for a real football club here because, not being biased, obviously we have the best supporter base in the NPL that come out in numbers, and they make it feel like a real football club. And the new guys this week with the first home game, they're going to experience the pre-game, post-game people hanging around. You don't get that anywhere else. And every new player that comes through absolutely loves it. And like Jure said, we get them a job, we get them accommodation. There's a lot of work that goes into bringing these guys from interstate, but you've got to do it. You can't just, hey, come play football and that's it, because one, they're not interested if that's the case. And two, if they do come, it's not going to be a good review for future players that you want to bring in from interstate.
Absolutely. Conscious of time. Pre-season's gone all well. The young guys you mentioned, Felipe and Stabber's kid, Jack, and the others, they all got good time. The Knights ended up taking out the Crow Cup in a bizarre penalty shootout. Won the Friendship Cup against a very strong Sydney United. So all goes well. And I think we'll work towards the first break. Is that right, Josh? Or we're just going to plough on into the round one?
Up to you guys.
Well, I'm happy to do a little bit of review over the weekend. We haven't got the scores. Everyone's probably aware of the first round results. In terms of us, we had a difficult fixture at Port Melbourne on Friday night. Port are very well coached, not so much a high-profile team. There's some good names there. Miloš Lujic came to Port this year, and I thought both centre-backs, even when Duncan came on in the second half, basically did very well on him. But difficult conditions. Port, first game of the season, wind, rain. I thought it was both teams, the pitch was very, very quick. Both teams tried to play, and essentially, there was unfortunate. We went down to 10 men with Breezy getting sent off. And on behalf of everyone at the Knights, we wish Lockie Reese a speedy recovery. It was one of those incidents in football that's unfortunate. But we went down to 10 men. You were in the rooms at half time. You mentioned tactical switches and what have you. So tell us a little bit about what the plan was to go into the game, and obviously the replanning that needed to be done at half time when we found ourselves down to 10 men.
Yeah, so we'd watched Port Melbourne for the last 2 weeks going into the game. They played a similar formation both times, different personnel, so you didn't really know who was going to line up for them on the weekend. And they obviously added Mohamed Awad very, very late into their squad too. So we didn't work too much on what they were going to do, because round one, you just don't know. You know, we could have prepped for the way they lined up the week before, but it could have been completely different. So Stuart was more focused on what we were going to do, and he wanted to take the game to him. And you could see from the onset, you know, our fullbacks were bobbing on. We were getting crosses into the box. We were trying to retain possession as much as we could. It was a clear game plan that we've been working on, that Stuart's tried to implement through training sessions and the whole pre-season. And then that went out the window half an hour into the game. You know, it was unfortunate the way it happened, and, you know, Breezy's apologised for his tackle, and that's football sometimes. You know, you can't begrudge it. That's what you get when you've got a player like that. He'll give his all, and I don't think he intentionally meant to hurt him. It was just the, you know, wet surface, and he's probably a bit overeager in round one, and just the way it happened. And obviously the yellow card and then the red card, it was all a bit of confusion. So to get to half-time and keep it 0-0 was great in itself, because that game that Josh mentioned about last year when Felipe made his debut against Bentley last year was a similar situation where Joey Franich got sent off, and we crumbled and lost 4-0. So to get to halftime and it was 0-0, Stuart, you know, took his time, let the boys get their drinks and stuff, and then took off Connor Macdonald and brought on Marcus Duncan to put him into the centre-back position and push Joey next to Nikola Jukovic in the defensive midfield roles.
And both Jan and Bachetto then had to play a bit deeper, yeah?
Yeah, so they were told they're going to have to work a bit harder, and we're going to have to take risks and go one-on-one at times, because if we were to sit off for the entire game, we were going to get punished. So we had to keep trying to play as well as we could and wait for our chances. And I thought it was a very, very smart move, because we started off with 2 attacking midfielders and 1 defensive midfielder, and we ended up with just 2 defensive midfielders, but they screened that midfield exceptionally well, and Jan and Bachetto dropping in really helped. Hamish was a little bit isolated up front, but then he pops up and scores a typical Hamish Watson goal.
Oh, some goal. I mean, 1 against 4, muscled his way between 2 defenders, sent one the wrong way, the other one didn't even come into play, and then curled it in with 15 to go.
It was an unbelievable finish from Hamish, just to create something out of nothing. You know, when he got the ball, he was out wide on the left, and you wouldn't even think a chance was coming, really, and just barged his way through, and it was a great finish into the far corner. Nearly done my knee again when he scored, jumped up, slipped. So luckily that didn't happen again. But yeah, it was great. And the boys were buzzing after that. And then obviously the onslaught was going to start coming, you know, the humid conditions, down to 10 men. Round one, you're not fully match fit. You know, you could see the boys were tiring, and Port started slowly coming. And then unfortunately the goal came, and, you know, we couldn't hold on for an extra 5 minutes. But considering the conditions and the circumstances of everything that happened in the game, I thought it was an exceptional performance from the boys.
Yeah, all in all, I think that was as far as, you know, you get a red card early in the game like that, you know, you're going in. At that point, I think everyone in the stadium, as a Knights fan, would have been happy to accept a 1-1 draw at that point, to take a point out of a game where you're one man down for basically 60 minutes. You know, Watson turned something into nothing, as he's quite want to do.
Nothing into something.
Yeah, nothing into something, rather.
It was a great performance, good result to start the season. A lot of positives to take out of it, and you could see the the new boys that they've slotted in straight away. So the individual performances of every single player, Sivic, Petrillo, Duncan, Yildiz, Bichette, Connor in the first half was great. Breezy until he got sent off was great. Hamish was great again. Albano for me was probably the best on ground with his work rate. So the individual performances that came together as a team, it was great to see the character as well from the boys so early on, and it'll put us in good stead for the rest of the season, because when our back's against the wall, you can always refer to the opening game of the year that they played together, the first game that they've played together as a new team, and see the character that they were able to produce already.
Yeah, the boys definitely showed some great fighting character on Friday night.
Yeah, and Port away are always going to be a tough team for the whole. I mean, like I said, they've probably been punching above their weight and gone under the radar the last 2 years, but they're very well organised and got a lot of zippy players. And I think, if the hardcore who recognise the effort of the team and what have you, and I think on the whole, a 1-1 draw was probably a fair result at the end of the day. It's always stings a little bit when you cop an equaliser so late in the piece, but I think, without looking at isolated incidents, I think it was a fair result, given that, for almost an hour we were down to 10 men. So it appeared to start as a 4-3-3 formation, with, as we said, Gian and Bichette giving a lot of pace down the wings, Breezy probably playing as a floating 10, and Hammer, well, you know what you're going to get with Hammer. So the fact that, things had to change, and it was a bold move. Your visa player to get taken off after 45 minutes. Probably Joey would have relished the chance to get back into the midfield. And like I said, apart from the psychology of scoring a goal and knowing that the onslaught was going to come, it was very difficult to actually, for me, to recognise that we were down to 10 men the way we played the first 25, 30 minutes of the second half.
I was going to say that first half an hour of the second half, you'd think that Port Melbourne was down to 10 men. We controlled possession, we counter-attacked at the right times, and I think Hamish was immense as well. His control of the ball, his challenges in the air, he was winning everything. Hamish went to another level in that second half, and without him up top in a game like that, it could be quite difficult. But he was immense in the second half, holding up the play and waiting till he had support, and it was a great performance.
What's the story with the hairstyle?
Well, when I spoke to him and I'd seen his new haircut, I said, Hamish, before we even talk anything, you got to get rid of that haircut. It's shocking, mate. And he said, no, it's staying. It's the new fashion. That's how it is, and he's kept it. So, I'm not a fan, but
brave choice.
Good luck to him.
Brave choice.
Well, if the way he played on Friday night is anything to go by,
he could do whatever he wants with his hair. As long as he's banging in goals.
So we get to round 2 this Friday night, first game of the season. We're hoping for a big crowd. The club encourages everyone to take their memberships out for the year. There's new merchandise. The membership packages have all been mailed out. Same tier as membership as last year. Your corporates, gold, silver and bronze. We're expecting a big crowd. We're playing Dandenong Thunder, so we expect a good travelling support for the local Dandenong-based and local Albanian community. So get ready, night fans. It's a 7:30 kickoff. And this year, the club, I think, is 20 out of the 26 games on a Friday night.
Yeah, yep.
There's a lot of clubs playing on a Friday night.
Yeah, there's 5 games this Friday night.
Yep, so we look forward to a big crowd. Now, we're up against Dandy Thunder, who had a big win over the weekend, knocking off, unfortunately, Dandenong City from a Croatian perspective. Brandon Barnes, we talk about hairstyles, we talk about builds and what have you, but when people can score goals like Hamish Watson and Brandon Barnes, who are we to speak? So tell us a little bit about what the preparation, I know it's early in the week, but what we're preparing for, and how do you think we'll be able to counter the threat that Brandon Barnes poses?
Yeah, well, obviously we watched the game on Saturday, and I thought Dandenong Thunder were great against Dandenong City. They came out firing as well, and to have Barnesy back in their team, that he's virtually impossible to stop. I don't think fitness-wise he could probably last 90 minutes, but you keep him on there for 100 minutes because, at any given time, he can just do whatever he wants and make a goal out of nothing. Without him, I don't think they would have survived in the league last year. His goals are, crucial to them. But they've recruited fairly well in the off-season. They were in a similar position to us a couple of years ago where you're in the relegation playoff game and you never want to be in that situation again. So they recruited quite heavily. They look good up front. They had Barnesy. They brought in Marifiotti from South Melbourne.
Scored.
They brought in a guy from Lions FC in Queensland who's quite good.
Hatfield, was it?
Yeah, Hatfield, that's the name. They brought in a great goalkeeper from Perth. So they looked quite solid. It's going to be a difficult game, but I'm confident that we can get a result, and we've got to take all 3 points because our mandate this year is to play finals football, and you need to win these games at home definitely. And I think we've got the personnel that can definitely beat them, and Stuart's already putting his plans into place for Friday, and I'm quite confident that we'll get the 3 points.
Yeah, I think as much as possible, if you're looking to play finals football, you need to make your home ground as much of a fortress as we can. So we need all of you Knights fans to come out on Friday night, be in full voice, get behind the boys and help steer them towards the 3 points.
Yep, definitely.
Well, Dandy had a big crowd on Saturday, probably around about 2,000 people. The Albanian community certainly came out in force. We hope this Friday that we're able to duplicate that during our first game.
Yep.
I'm sure the club has got, as has been the case the last couple of years, some Friday night entertainment in the beer garden. It's still daylight saving, so we, like I said, get down to the ground, get your memberships, check out the merch, and come support the boys.
With that, I think we'll take a very short break, and when we come back, take a look around the rest of the NPL, and we've got some community news as well. Plenty more still to come on the Night Train, so stay with us.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
The Night Train is brought to you by St Andrews Hotel, 128 Nicholson Street, Fitzroy. Beautifully crafted, cosy and intimate spaces for your drinking and dining experiences. Welcome back to the Night Train. It is the Season 2 premiere coming to you live on FNR Football Nation Radio. We've got plenty more still to get through. I think we'll start with a look around the rest of the NPL.
Yeah, just a little bit of a recap. If I'll go through the results, anyone wants to put some comments in, feel free to. So the season kicked off on Thursday night where Oakley Cannons defeated Avondale 3-1. Avondale copped the red card. But I think Oakley is a team to watch this year, I think.
Yeah, definitely. They've recruited really well in the off-season, and they were probably the most informed team in the second half of the season last year. I think they were sitting second last at the halfway mark and then ended up finishing third. So to recruit the way they did, and they've started strong. You were there at the game, Josh?
Yeah, scoring it. Yeah. Joe Knowles looks really handy.
Yeah.
The player they brought in from Joondalup, I think it was.
Stuart actually tried to bring him across, but he'd already signed at Oakley because he'd worked with him at Perth Glory when he was there. So, yeah, great player. Looked really, really good.
He's got an A-League goal to his name, about 15 appearances in a Perth Glory shirt, and he's still very young, so he looks extremely handy. But, yeah, they've done really well. Tyson Holmes, the NPL stalwart, former gold medalist in 2018, is just a massive recruit for their midfield. And they look to have a bit more of an attacking dimension to the game this season. They were so defensively solid last season, just played on the counter-attack and were absolutely clinical. And they've still got that general game plan, but they've just got a little bit more subtlety to them on the ball with Tyson Holmes, with Joe Knowles, with some of the other guys they brought in. Joe Guest obviously is just a freak, and he's really good defensively as well. I think he's underrated. He works really hard. off the ball to harass and harry people. So Oakley look like title contenders this season, in my opinion.
Definitely a team to watch for.
Well, Avondale will be up there as well, but it'll be interesting to see.
The reaction.
The reaction. I mean, it was the news that came out just before that game, what effect it would have had on the players and what have you. But it's probably a watch this space. But Avondale, you get 3 points against them, you're doing well. The big Greek derby, which was unfortunately, from what I hear, nowhere near attended as what was expected. But Heidelberg had a quite easy 3-0 win over South Melbourne at Lakeside. We know what we spoke about, our 1-1 draw at Port Melbourne. And then over the weekend, we mentioned our next opponents, Dandenong Thunder. They beat Dandenong City 3-2. Unfortunately, Dandy City came back from 2-0 down, and then an unfortunate red card, about 5 minutes before the end.
Yeah.
Nick Kelmar and then Brandon Barnes, like I said, pops
Brandon
up.
Barnes doing Brandon Barnes things on the weekend again.
Yeah, 93rd minute or something to take home the chocolates in the big Dandy derby. Hume City, I think it was 7 red cards. 3 of them came in the Hume City 2-0 win over Altona Magic. Hume, you can't underestimate Hume.
No, you can't. Nick Hegarty's a great coach. He won Coach of the Year last year. They won the Doherty Cup against us in the finals. So very consistent team, and he's got them very, very well organised. They play quite an interesting system that's quite hard to play against with their rotations in their midfield. And they've got experienced players. They're James Brown, Mitch Cooper. They brought in Josh Bingham up front from Central Coast.
Yeah.
Andy Brennan's come in from Green Gully as well.
Brennan, they've got goalkeeper of the year, Michael Weir.
And always tough to beat at home, Hume.
Yeah.
And Magic, big turnover there, so I think they're going to be a challenging season for them.
To be fair, they were quite good, Altona. I watched that game, and they were better than I thought they were going to be with the turnover they had. But they've got some good young players that they've brought in from Melbourne City and Victory, and they looked quite good, to be honest.
And probably the biggest shock in terms of results over the weekend was St Albans Dinamo, 4-2 winners over Green Gully. Green Gully started the worst possible way. Michael Gudigic put Dinamo up 1-0 very early on, and then a rather strange red card. Jonathan Boonis decides to...
Interesting decision, to say the least.
Yeah, so, I mean, that'll play out the way it is. But St Albans, in front of their faithful, to get 3 points against the neighbours, 2 kilometres up the road, it's a huge result.
Yeah, I went to the game yesterday, actually, to have a look, and they look good, Dinamo. They played a good brand of football, and, the perfect start, 2 minutes in, get a goal, get them on the back foot, and then Green Gully capitulated a little bit after the red card. And when it was 2-0, they had a chance to make it 2-1 and missed an open goal. And I think that just really, set the tone for the rest of the afternoon, and Dinamo really got in their groove. I said to Anthony before we came in, when the fixture comes out and it's round 1 and you see that you've got a newly promoted team at their ground, you don't really fancy going there, because St Albans started like a newly promoted team, like a house on fire, over eager. And when you get that early goal, they took the momentum through for the rest of the game and deserved 3 points.
Yeah, Fox Street always is a hard place to travel to as well. The Dinamo's faithful, always very vocal.
Yeah, there was a bumper crowd there yesterday too.
Yep, no, it's a fantastic start for Crooney and the boys.
If anyone from St Albans is listening, can I ask them please move the scaffolding from behind the light pole?
It's unfortunate. The light pole's right on the halfway line.
It's the commentators and the cameraman who cop it, but it's the club who puts the scaffolding up. So, although it is prime advertising positioning, if anyone is looking to sponsor, so maybe that's their thinking. They just
shouldn't encourage it, Josh. We just think it's galore on that light pole. And to round things up, I mean, we spoke about St Albans obviously being promoted and getting a first up win, but Eastern Lions came up against the strength of Bentley Greens, and with aplomb, Bentley beat him 3-0. So they're the first round results. Like I said, we look forward to this Friday's home game against Dandenong Thunder, and we, like I said, encourage all our supporters and the Dandenong Thunder supporters and the local Albanian community to come out on Friday. I don't know what the weather forecast is like, but...
perfect 21 degrees.
Oh, exactly what you're looking for on a Friday night.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but as you can see through those results, 7 red cards, and we were the only team that got a point out of those games that had a red card. So I think, that speaks for itself in the performance. And I watched every game bar the Heidelberg South Melbourne game because that was on at the same time. And every team looks they've recruited really well, and it's going to be a tough league this year. You know, anyone can beat anyone, and you've got to be on your A game every single week to really push for a final spot. And that's where our depth will come in when we need it, because you know it's not going to go your way every single week, and competition for places will keep us individually on our toes and hopefully get the results we need.
Well put, Mark. Well put. And coming in as well in a couple of weeks' time, Melbourne Knights will be hosting Melbourne Croatia rather, will be hosting the Muggers in concert in a couple of weeks' time. So we encourage everyone to look to get your tickets, get down and support the community for another wonderful event hosted by the club.
Absolutely. Again, we're coming up to, I don't know how long we've still got to go. In terms of other news, I was going to leave it to the end, but before I forget, on behalf of the night train team and the members and supporters of both Melbourne Knights Football Club and Melbourne Croatia Soccer Club, we offer our deepest condolences to the Cimera family. Angelko Cimera is a long-time servant of the club, ex-president of Melbourne Croatia Melbourne Knights Football Club, current and long-term president of Melbourne Croatia Soccer Club. So the connection with the Cimera family is huge, and our deepest condolences go out on the passing of Angelko's mother, Olga, better known as Milka Cimera, and again to their 3 children and their extended Cimera family, we offer our condolences. And for the community, the funeral for the late Olga Cimera will be held at the Sveti Leopold Bogdan Mandic Centre in Sunshine this Wednesday at 10:30 a.m.
Thank you for that. What else have we got on the rundown, guys?
We probably could easily open up to get some sort of calls and what have you, but I haven't even taken track of the Facebook messages.
I tell you what, I'll go to a quick break. We'll hear from our sponsors for this season, and then we're going to open up the doghouse.
Careful what you...
The Night Train is brought to you by St Andrew's Hotel, 128 Nicholson Street, Fitzroy. Beautifully crafted, cosy and intimate spaces for your drinking and dining experiences.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
In tonight's special feature, we hear their thoughts on where the game has been and where it's heading.
You can't handle the truth.
You want really to say something?
Open up the doghouse. Open up the doghouse. Rover, rover, move it over. 2 cats are coming in.
Yes, it is time to open up the doghouse here on the Night Train, and we've got Bubba Ilitsa on the line. You're live on the air.
Hello, boys. It's Bubba Ilitsa here. Anthony Zovak.
Hi, Barker. How are we tonight?
Anthony, that's over to you for that one.
Oh,
I don't know how to
me.
respond.
I don't know how I've managed to forget the cake. Bubba always makes the best of kolache. Bubba, we're going to need you to speak on English. We are actually on English radio tonight.
All right, I speak English, broken English. Yeah, I was going to ring earlier, but your show running like 5 minutes, and then I watched maths, and yeah.
Yeah, we are going head-to-head with Married at First Sight again this season.
Maths.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. Maybe Mark, you should go show maybe next year.
Get marks on the maths, we reckon.
Yeah, me on the logo.
Hvala, Bubba.
Thanks, Bubba.
All right, in closing.
Anyway, I think to maybe a little bit light, but I think to wish Anthony good luck, but light, but never mind. Anyway, I didn't tell one story. Anthony, you remember when you were born, I taking you to church, I hold you up in the air like Simba. You remember?
Yes, that's
And Father
actually
Mustafa,
a
he
true
yelled.
story.
I put you up in the air, and Mustafa, he yelled, "This Simba, this my son."
Oh, yes,
Baba,
yes.
Baba, very proud of you.
Thanks, Baba. Always happy to hear from you.
Yeah, I support you 120%. Ali, you need to find nice, lovely girl. Girls, Anthony single. He's no drink, he's no smoke. He's a good boy.
Thank you, Baba.
No worry. Hey, Jure, I like your T-shirt, but I think I've seen Daniel wear that when he comes to Please give it back to him.
Will do.
It's too small for you.
Hvala, gospođo.
No worries. And you bring Baba some mandarins, please, for Metkovic, please.
Mandarina all round, no problem.
Yeah, please.
Will do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I make it apricot jam for you.
Bit hard to make apricot jams from mandarins.
I know.
Don't tell me what to do, all right? All right, boy. Take care. Anthony, vozi polako doma, please.
Thank you, Baba.
Okay. See you later, boy.
All right, there you go. Be careful what you wish for, Josh. Like I said,
It was almost like being on the phone to my grandma. I can't. You think the phone call's going to end, and then it keeps going.
No.
So as we spoke about this year, we've invested heavily in the first team. I should also mention from a senior women's perspective that our senior women's team are now in the VPL.
Yep.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, it's a new league.
Promotion almost it can be counted as, so at the highest tier in Victoria. We are still looking for some players, or there's still spots available, both in the reserves and if you're good enough to break into the first team squad. So we encourage all the girls out there who would be interested in playing to contact the Knights through our website to get full details of training nights for Wednesdays. But we wish the senior women and the reserves team all the very best in 2020. From a senior perspective, Mark, it's easy these days to fall into the trap as long as we have a good cup run. Everything is fine from a financial perspective, but we're not motivated solely by that. We've certainly got, as you said, our eyes are firmly on making the finals, which will be for the first time for quite a while. So, and I'm sure that's been spoken openly by the playing group, and we speak about Stuart Munro, who comes with a fantastic pedigree. I mean, let alone his playing CV, but his coaching CV with Dandenong Thunder, Dandenong City, Perth Glory. He's developed a lot of players. So for him to come out of 2 years of exile or retirement, certainly, and I've heard him say this when at the season launch, the Knights were too good an opportunity to knock back. So, but he shares the same expectations as the board.
Yep, 100%. You know, he's, like I said, where he's travelling from an hour and 45 minutes to training one way, he's not coming just to make up the numbers in the league. You know, finals football is a must for us this year, and, you know, I think the squad that we've put together can definitely do that. It won't be easy. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of good teams out there. And obviously a cup run is required as well, because we saw how much attention that brought to the club last year. With the run we went on and playing Adelaide and the crowd we had, you know, and again, that's not easy to do as well, because the longer the FFA Cup goes, the more teams that want to make it, because they see every year the exposure teams get. So if we can do both, it'd be fantastic, but definitely finals football is a requirement this year. And I see no reason why we can't do it, because, like I said, so many people coming from interstate, so many people in Melbourne travelling so many hours to come to the ground. You know, no one's there just for the fun of it. You know, it's a highly driven dressing room. They're all highly motivated. They're all winners, and we're trying to instill as a good environment as we can for them to get the results.
Yeah, I think when you look across what the club's been managed to do in the pre-season in terms of bringing these players that we've brought in, bringing in the high-performance team to sort of manage injuries, and, you know, you don't get a coach like Stuart Munro if you want to be sitting middle of the pack, you know. I think the club's made some very, very good and clear moves as to what its intentions are for the season, and let's just hope everything goes well.
Yep, definitely. Like, we've spared no expense, you know, like you said, the high-performance team, Stuart Munro, Lockie Armstrong, the assistant coach, who's been unbelievable as well, and his pedigree is unbelievable. We retained Tony Belico as the goalkeeper coach. Just so many facets that we put together. And when I joined the board and Pavi took over as president, we had a 3-year plan to make the finals, and we're into our 3rd year, so we're on track to do what we set out to do. And once you make the finals, anything can happen. It's easy to say, let's just make the finals. Once you're in the finals, you can win it. I think Bentley finished 5th last year and ended up winning, got a new coach in the final series and won the whole thing. So, once you're in the finals, that's why people say the aim is to make the finals, because once you're in it, you're a good chance to do some damage in there.
And if you want to hear from Stuart directly, we've just had confirmation. He will be on the FNR Breakfast Show tomorrow morning, 8:45 a.m. We'll have him live on the line. I'm sure he'll be on this very program before long, but hear from Stuart Munro, the Knights head coach, tomorrow morning, 8:45 a.m. on Breakfast on FNR.
Absolutely. And so before we wind up, we spoke about the position of the squad, competition for places. So there'll definitely be one change this week, and it'll be interesting to see who will take over from Matthew Breeze, who will be out suspended. So do we expect, in terms of rotations and what have you, anyone putting their hand up? I mean, there would have been, as we said, there was 3 players who were first 11 on the bench for the first game, and 5 or 6 sitting on the sidelines who were fully fit. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of replacements come in this week.
Yeah, look, Huey, we've got a fair few options that we can go with to replace Breezy in that starting 11. I don't think Stuart's settled on what he wants to do and how he's going to tackle it. But like we said, the competition for places is quite high at the moment. So whoever comes in, we're more than confident that they can do the job. And Breezy will have to, work his way back in once his suspension's finished. That's the beauty of a team sport. One player goes out, another comes in, and he gets his opportunity. And if he does the job, it's his spot to lose.
Well, I think that's all we've got time for on the Night Train tonight. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you, Mark, especially for your insights into the process, what you've gone through in the pre-season. It's a huge game coming up this week for the Melbourne Knights against Dandenong Thunder, Friday night.
Friday night, 7:30.
Make sure you get down there. This has been the season premiere of the Night Train here on FNR. We hope to see you all back. It's been an incredible response on the Facebook Live next week at the same time. But until then, it is goodbye for now.
I think the Knights, their time has arrived. I think last week, that 10-man performance in the preliminary final